This is iFanboy Pick of the Week, number 738, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you who are washing their hands, wearing their masks, thinking about other people, and being all right. Hello, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 738. Have yourself a cold one.
Hey, you know what? This is just life. Josh is popping cans. I got nothing going on, but it's fine.
I'm Josh Flanagan. That's Conor Kilpatrick.
Hello.
It's iFanboy. That's us. Every week we do this show for as much of my life as I can remember, and assuming for the rest of my life.
A not insignificant percentage.
Exactly. In terms of adult life, a quite significant percentage. We're going to read the comics that come out every week, whatever's there, and sometimes that list gets bigger and bigger the closer we get to Wednesday. And then the person whose job it is every week to pick the pick of the week picks that pick, and then we call that the pick of the week, and we do that here on the show, which is the pick of the week. It should be fun. Pick of the week.
Yeah.
Your spoiler warning is that there will be spoilers in the books that we talk about, including the pick of the week and the patron pick. Exercise your caution, Conor. You have the pick.
I did, and this was a very strange week. Marvel and DC didn't put out very many books. DC put out one DCeased book. Marvel put out a couple of... They were only digital-only books. Marvel put out a couple of digital-only books. There was nothing in the stores if you were a store customer and your store's open. So originally we thought, oh no, what are we going to do for the show? Are we going to have to do another trade? And then we like to listen. We had a couple of books. So, well, we can make a show out of that. And then by the time I finished, I had 8 books, which is a very low number for me, but also not like, out of the ballpark of a light week.
It's enough to do a show.
More than enough. The pick of the week ended up being Hawkeye Freefall number 6, the final issue of this miniseries, written by Twitter sensation Matthew Rosenberg, art by Otto Schmidt, letters by Joe Sabino. This book has been picked at least once before. I'm a big fan of this particular miniseries, and I'm very curious to see what you thought, Josh, because the title Hawkeye Freefall is very apt and has been there literally on the cover the entire time, as I guess the story has been watching Hawkeye's descent. Fraction and Aya, brought him down a few pegs entertainingly, but now we're seeing a bottomed out Clint Barton here. He has finally lost his girlfriend for good after this issue. His actions caused his friends to turn on him and him to turn on them. And then at the end, he sort of becomes not a bad guy, but
more of a vigilante.
Almost full circle from where he started when he first was originally introduced in comics as a bad guy. So crosses the line a bit, and tragically he does so in his original costume, which at first I was really excited, and then I thought that the implications of that were that there's no hiding this is Hawkeye. It's not like he's not wearing a t-shirt, he's not wearing the Ronin costume, he's in his classic getup, at least as interpreted by Otto Schmidt.
It's a good interpretation.
It's a great interpretation. I don't see why this couldn't be him going forward. It doesn't look silly or anything.
No, looks great.
He has this confrontation with the Hood, who's been dogging this entire miniseries, and fights him rather brutally while they're being watched by all these criminals that the Hood has hired to kill Hawkeye. So then at the end, they basically say he's one of us now, as he walks away bloodied and beaten and emotionally destroyed. I thought this was really good. I love the art. I've always, every time I talk about Otto Schmidt, he's terrific. He needs to be on bigger and bigger books. I think Matthew Rosenberg, it's unfortunate. He's a really, really talented writer who keeps, either through his choice or Marvel's choice, writing these fringe books and fringe characters that don't necessarily light up the sales charts. But the ones I read I really enjoy. And, this book got moved to digital only. A lot of people stopped reading it. A lot of people in the iFan base stopped reading it because of that. It's unfortunate because the book ended very strongly, and if you missed out on it, it's your loss. I loved this miniseries the whole way through, and I thought this was a little emotionally sad ending to it.
You had sent me a text at some point, and you said, I finished my books, and there's no clear pick. And I thought, And then I read the books. I read this first, and I finished it, and I went, well, that's your pick of the week. And I've spent it's like 2 days of me not saying that to you.
Right.
So I could do it here on the show. It's interesting. I think you're saying, well, you were curious what I would think about it because I'm a Hawkeye fan and have been, but I think this all tracks. I think...
Oh, that's that beeping sound. Did you hear the beep?
I did hear the beep.
That means my cake is ready. We talked about cake last week, so everyone hold on. Okay, my cake is now cooling on the counter, and we may resume talking about Hawkeye's downfall.
Real quick, can I get a little description of the cake?
Oh, it's a moist yellow cake in a bundt pan.
Really? Like a
Yeah.
box cake and you did it in the bun, huh?
Yeah. I only have a bundt pan, so
No
the
shit.
only choice I had, yeah.
Do you find that limits your cake enjoyment, or is that you like it that way?
I like the bundt.
Makes for a good slice. Makes an easy
It's
slice.
a nice slice, and I also, will often make angel food cake.
Uh-huh.
So that's,
I think we've talked about this before because I find that disgusting.
That's fine.
I mean, yeah, no, I know. That works.
But after last week's discussion, I wanted cake, so here we go. Here we are.
Well, it took you a week.
Yeah. Well,
Get on it.
I had the mix. I just was waiting.
I just want to be real quick that I said box cake, and I just want to know that in this context, I have no problem with that. I'm not looking down on box cake.
I
Box
love
cake
box
is
cake.
wonderful. Thank God for box cake. Anyway, let's move along. I think that this story does track, and it's kind of interesting because we looked at the Fraction Nausea run, and it was like, this is really good, but it sort of dropped the character in a place that it felt wrong, and also, the movie did that too. And if you look at this as sort of a reaction to all that, like it's this character who kind of can't figure out a way to fit in anymore, and his reactions have always been extreme. That's very much a part of that character. He runs hot. He is self-righteous.
He makes bad choices.
He makes bad choices. He is a good guy at heart, and people like him. But he makes mistakes, and he kind of skates by right on the edge of sort of what's acceptable. And this story is kind of a culmination of all of those things. And it the more I look at it, the more I feel like I start seeing all sorts of parallels and metaphors that it could be. It's like, oh, this is Gen X. Like he just doesn't fit in with all the stuff. The world is changing around him. It's not what he thought it would be. On and on. There's all these sort of ways you can think about it. When you start building it like that, well, then it gets kind of interesting. Starts
wearing the clothes from when he was younger.
Yeah, there you go. They say you wear the clothes from the last year that you were really happy. And then, again, to go along with that metaphor, if you want to talk about sort of aging into middle age or something like that, all of a sudden, all of the things that he skated around on before, but now he's got consequences. Now things are happening because of it. First of all, he's beat to shit, which is really interesting because he got beat to shit in the Fraction Nausea run, and it was kind of like a gag. And here at the end, he's got his regular costume on, and he's beat to shit, and it's unnerving. Whereas it wasn't unnerving in the other book.
Yeah, his face is hamburger underneath that mask in that last page, and it was a startling shot. I mean, I liked the artistic touch of being able to see the bandages underneath the mask. They just sort of peeked out from the edges of the mask. And Otto Schmidt is just incredible. We talk all the time about how there's a dearth of new, really talented artists. There's new artists, and there's been one or two that I thought really worthy of being on a Marvel or DC book, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of professionalism. And Otto Schmidt's definitely up there. He has a unique style. He doesn't look like anybody else. He draws terrific action. He does great character work and cartooning with expressions and faces and acting. He has the whole package.
Yeah, and this issue is sort of a final issue. You got to have a lot of things wrapped up. There was 2 big fights. There was sort of, there's no chance that he's going to get back together with the Night Nurse.
No, which was a tough scene. We liked them as a couple in the beginning. They're fun, and so when his little, hipster slacker sidekick gets beaten up really badly and back shot full of arrows by a bullseye, he takes him to the Night Nurses to get fixed, and you think maybe now they'll reconcile over this kid. But no, it goes the other way. She's like, get the hell out of here and never come back. And that was tough. And then the next scene was kind of funny, but also with all the text messages, it reminded me of our old friend Timmy, who used to write for the site and who was a friend of ours and who did a bit on the website about superhero text chains. He used to do that all the time. And that made me think of that with the Avengers all texting Clint trying to find out what happened to Captain America. But Bullseye's a great nemesis for Hawkeye. The highlight to me was their fight in the middle with the bow and arrow, and Bullseye's like, no one's better at me. You may be better with the bow, but I've got better aim. And Hawkeye's like, really?
That was fantastic. And I had that thought. I go, wait a minute. Why isn't this his nemesis?
Right.
Or his arch enemy? Like, it seems like a perfect match, and I'm assuming they've met before, but I think when was it the Thunderbolts?
That would make sense.
Wasn't Bullseye the Hawkeye for a little bit before Trickshot took it?
Maybe.
on one of those versions. But either way, I thought their dynamic was really fun to read. And again, it had stakes, and we are over Bullseye for sure.
Yeah.
But this was a good one. It's not his classic costume, but it wasn't whatever that
close.
last one was. It was better. And Parker Robbins sort of was like another side of the coin too. The Hood was overconfident, but had a lot of reasons to be, and he lost. And then Clint goes and he pulls a John Constantine basically in this book.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot here. It was a lot of stuff happened in the issue, and then it had a real conclusion, and it was a satisfying conclusion, but not a happy ending conclusion. And I think that's always kind of a brave choice. Matt Rosenberg. I think it's a little bit of a choice to stay on books that he can do cool shit like this with. I can't remember exactly. I talked with him a little about that when they did that Talksplode with him a few months ago.
Right.
Like he makes choices like that on purpose to sort of get to do stuff that he's interested in. Which to me sounds like it's a complete punk rock move. It's just be like but he's done X-Men too. He can do those things. But when he is into the characters, he's got a good track record with Clint Barton. That Winter Soldier Hawkeye story from a while ago was fantastic. I don't know that the world can sustain. Obviously, it can't. The 6-issue miniseries couldn't even stay printed, but that is a shame because it was great. I mean, I think it tracks with what you think of as Clint Barton, and I think at the same time, if you were a fan of Fraction's run, that's the same guy too in there. I think he's melded them pretty well.
There's a nice little callback to that Bucky Hawkeye book when we see all the text messages from all the Avengers, and we see he's got 14 missed calls, but the one call he chooses to highlight is Bucky calling him. So there's a nice little callback to that relationship.
Well-made comic book. Really just a good comic book.
This has been literally one of my favorite Marvel books of the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Hawkeye's a great character. We both love him. The art's been terrific. Rosenberg writes snappy, fun comics that have a lot of heart and weight to them.
Yeah. They appear to be, like, when you finish them, they appear to be more than they seemed.
You're like, there's a lot more layers here that I didn't realize were happening.
You can look back over it and really start to appreciate it. At the same time, you're having fun reading through it, so it's got the best of both things.
So I did text you that message saying I wasn't sure about the pick, and it was true. When I finished reading my books, I didn't have one that immediately spoke to me. I didn't sleep on it, but I had to sit with it for a while. And eventually Hawkeye came out as the one I kept gravitating towards. But for a while, I was thinking about Bad Karma #2, Panel Syndicate, Alex DeCampi, Ryan Howe. They don't have a title page, so I don't know who else has worked on the book. We read the first issue. It was the Patron Pick, and this is the second issue release. And I really liked this issue, even if I'm still not sure about the book itself.
I didn't read it. We talked about it, and I found myself not interested enough to remember it, but I am interested based on what you just said, convinced me.
In the first issue, we had these two soldiers who were friends. They're both, one's missing a leg, the other one's got pretty severe PTSD. They're in Boston, and they see on the TV that someone's going to be executed for a murder, and they say, oh, no, that's not right. We killed that guy. And so in this issue, they start out on a road trip, really nicely done montage as they get ready for the road trip with sound effects and very nicely paced. And so they hit the road first to try to convince the guy's lawyer that his client is innocent and he needs to get him out because they killed the guy, and he's just like, get the hell out of here, you crazy people. We see a little flashback to the murder, which was kind of funny because they are talking about it in real time. So we see the dialogue balloons are from them talking on the couch with the lawyer, but we're seeing them committing the murder. That was a fun device. And then they sort of hit a brick wall. No one wants to help them. They see their old CO, who's kind of an asshole, who won't help them. No one will help them free this guy from death row. And then it ends up, the climactic moment is they're in a Waffle House drowning their sorrows in waffles. There's two guys who are hassling the black waitress, and they get in a fight and beat the hell out of those guys, but then the cops show up to arrest them. Still don't know about the overall story. I thought this was a really good character piece, and one of the things I did like about the first issue was the two guys and their relationship together, which continues to be the strong part of this book. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in for a little while longer. I wasn't sure if I was going to even read this issue, but I decided to do it because it was such a small week.
Did it make a lot more sense than the last one? Because I remember the other one was just harder to follow.
Well, because we have sort of a foundation from the first issue, and because it's mostly the two guys hanging out just in different scenarios, the Waffle House, mm-hmm. or with their CO, or with the lawyer, there wasn't a lot to keep track of.
Okay.
And they have good conversations. I do like the character work a lot, and the art's okay. It's at times it's really good. At other times it's not. But it worked for the most part. I like it. I don't love it, but I really liked this issue.
Well, that's fair. That works.
This is a relationship, as she talked about in her essay, that you don't often see. Two very affectionate colleagues. They hug here. They console each other. You don't often see that male relationship that's portrayed that way in media. I also really wanted waffles as I was reading it.
That's your move.
Not often I don't want waffles. I'm usually wanting waffles. So there's often, any random time during the day you can text me, do you want waffles? I'll say, yes, I do.
I can confirm that.
So, but I like, if you were on the fence with the first issue, this is a good one to check out because it is a lot more, there's a lot of strong character stuff in here and they're kind of fun. I need to know where this is going because clearly they're trying to clear this guy's name. What does that mean for them? Because they're the real murderers. Well, murder, but they were contracted by the government to kill this guy. I'm happy I read it, but I just don't know about the book itself. That's the only question mark at the moment.
Mm-hmm. God damn.
The Goddamned. Remember this book? The Virgin Brides #1.
I was very surprised to see it return.
I was trying to rack my brain to remember, did it even finish the original miniseries? I don't even know.
Maybe it finished an arc, or if it finished an arc, we didn't quite, but it was... I thought at first, it didn't, and maybe he brought somebody else in, but it was Jason Aaron and Guerra, so those are the principals on the book. So theoretically, whenever that last book came out, that was the end of an arc or whatever they were trying to say.
They must have finished. I mean, I just don't remember.
It wouldn't make any sense to not to come back and not finish it.
So we're back with a new miniseries, a new version, new volume. This is the Virgin Brides is the subtitle. And this is definitely the best looking book of the week for me. I was just so happy to see Guerra's work. We haven't seen him in forever. I don't know what he's been working on other than these books, but there was a time when we were seeing Guerra regularly in our comic book lives, and it was just nice. His books are so dirty in the best possible way. Everyone's dirty. The land is dirty. The setting is dirty.
This one though was a little, like the sort of garden that they work in before they get transported out was, had that idyllic but threatening sort of thing, like the Stepford Wives kind of stuff, Yeah, I haven't seen him in so long. It took me a little while to sort of reconnect with it. I was like, all right, okay, this is all this stuff. And I enjoyed it for the most part, I think.
I don't think I enjoyed it.
Yeah?
The first one was, these are sort of like Jason Aaron's real Tales of the Bible. At least that seems to be what the original pitch was. And the first one, wasn't it Cain and Abel?
I think.
Or the main guy was...
Honestly.
Cain? I don't remember. It was so long ago.
I don't remember.
So I don't know what this is all based on. I don't know if this is something he made up. I don't know if this is based on something from the Bible. I don't know.
There was a lot here. There was a pretty strong Handmaid's Tale thing. And I'm actually wondering if maybe this is based on the same thing that the Handmaid's Tale's based on.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know enough to be able to tell you that. The auntie is this sort of the same deal.
Right.
I believe they're called aunties. I liked the two characters. I liked that it's the same thing that, Brian Wood introduced it in the Viking book, and I think Jason Aaron's been doing this. They talk like people now.
Yeah.
And that kind of grounds it a little bit. I didn't love it because I was trying to, get my footing.
So the story is it's a community of young girls, prepubescent girls living in this community with female overseers, and they're being protected by these very scary and harsh looking female warriors who live in the hills above the community. And then when the girls reach womanhood, when they have their first period, they get taken up to the community above to marry, and they're never seen again. That was an interesting setup. And I think where it lost me a little bit was the reveals. They were super supernatural. And when it was more grounded in reality, and I realized from the deep recesses of my memory, I remember the original miniseries had like creatures, and it had an immortal guy so I realized it wasn't like, it wasn't scalped, but this was very like demons and. And so I found myself less interested in all that bit once it was all revealed.
I had that feeling too, but if I'm hanging with those two main girl characters, then I was kind of okay.
Right, so that there's two main female characters, one of their third friend who gets taken up in the beginning of the issue, that leads us into the story. They're still working in the cliffhangers that one of them has her first period, so they have to escape because they went up and snuck up and saw the reality of the world above, and so they're getting out of here because this is no good. I'm not going to read more. I'm definitely going to read more, but I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I really wanted to love that, but I didn't.
I get that. I enjoyed it. It didn't wow me though. I wasn't like, this is the stuff.
We had another final issue this week from Marvel, Star number 5. Kelly Thompson, Javier Pina, Felipe Andrade, Jesus Albertov, and Clayton Cowles. This is the final issue of this miniseries. I liked this whole miniseries. You got me to read it. I wasn't going to read it originally.
Was it not a patron pick? Doesn't matter.
Either way, someone got me to read it. You or them,
right?
Or someone. I liked Javier Pina's art, very traditional Marvel superhero. I loved the Felipe Andrade flashback.
Well,
art.
I was about to say you were talking about artists who are great, and every time Felipe Andrade shows up, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's and he's only got a handful of pages in here, but I really every time I saw one of those pages, it's great, and he's it's not super mainstream. I don't it's not like he's gonna do Avengers or whatever, but
God, wouldn't that be really awesome if he did Avengers?
Yeah.
For you, me, and 10 other people, one of them being Felipe Andrade. I just don't know if I understand the point of this miniseries.
I think I got it.
I mean, it was a nice character piece, and I get that. The point was I was entertained. That's ultimately the point.
Star is not a superhero. She doesn't have the altruistic sort of impulse to do the thing. She doesn't know what's going on, and so she's got is it the Reality Stone? I think the Reality Stone is embedded in her, and everybody's trying to get it or to control her. And, you've got this thing where the typical story is Captain Marvel and Scarlet Witch are going to come along and they're going to convince her, that you should come be with us, and then she will become a superhero. However, the twist in this is really that at the same time she's being pursued by, I don't know what they're called, but it's all the Thanos' minions. They were in the movies.
The Black something.
Ebony Maw and all those Hickman characters from his Avengers run, who are very different in this than in everything else. Here they're like a little gang, and they're actually quite reasonable.
The Black Order.
Yeah. And it's sort of the turning point, like shit's going down, and she just goes, I don't have to deal with any of this. So she goes and she makes a deal
right,
and walks away, and everybody's pissed off.
I did like that scene a lot.
Yeah.
They're in the classic hero moment where their backs against the wall, they're trapped. It's Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, and Star. And Captain Marvel and Scarlet Witch are just huddled in the corner making plans, and she keeps going, I have an idea. Wait, what about? And they're just like, shut up, you.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, fuck this. And she leaves, and then she turns back to the dark side. The Thing.
What I got out of it was that she sort of came to grips with what her power is. And when she realized that, she's like, I don't need any of this. And there's kind of a cool thing in there. It's not what you sort of expect from Marvel Comics, but I liked that it was just like, it's not even that she's bad or good. She's just like, I don't have to listen to any of this. And there's a sort of freedom in that's kind of cool. Like she's realized that how much power she does have and what she can do. And it's not hard to find a metaphor in that. But I really like that. I really like the characterizations, like Scarlet Witch and Captain Marvel aren't trying to do the wrong thing, but they're sort of alienating her without even meaning to. They're just so used to sort of taking everything over.
The final image was rather striking. What can I do? I can do whatever I want. As something blows up in the background. I don't know what that was supposed to be.
Yeah, that page was odd because so that's sort of everything I just said. And then like if she's the one who blows up a building, that makes her a terrorist. I don't think that's the case, but I don't think it was clear. I think maybe a thing happened and she was like, I'm not dealing with that.
And that's a possibility. It's very unclear. It seemed to me, from the visual look, she's in this like black suit now, and she's got very severe red hair, and her eyes are glowing red. A, that she's done this because her eyes are glowing red. And B, visually, she seems to be representing evil. From what I got from this was that for a second she flirted with being a hero. She had like a very sort of classic hero costume for most of this book, and then at the end she's just like, screw this, I'm gonna go off and not play by your rules. Whether that means she's a villain or not, it seems to be in her visual look. She's at the very least straddling the line at the very best.
Again, this was put to digital only, so who knows how, but it's interesting to have this sort of really powerful wild card character running around who, has a personality, is a human. There's all sorts of good things about that. Again, when I had Kelly on the show, I was talking to her about, the idea that what she's really good at and what she really likes to do, and this is going to sound like exactly my thing, is, is sort of the people talking and
Yep.
you know, being their own characters and dealing with their relationship and stuff, and then the with the other side of that being, you know, the world ending crisis event thing, and that's not so much in her wheelhouse. And that conversation plus reading this book made me go, I want to go back and read the Captain Marvel issues that she's been doing, because
I read all those.
I like that.
They were
Yeah,
good. They were good.
yeah, so I've got them all here on deck to go through, because, you know, if that's the case, I don't think that it's that she can't do, you know, this had real superhero stakes and, villains and all that stuff. So, you know, I thought overall it was a fun, different sort of thing and pretty successful.
I'm glad I read it. I think the last scene really threw me because I didn't know what was happening. I was like,
That's totally fair. I think.
What am I supposed to take out of this moment other than she looks badass and she's scary a little bit? Like, did she blow that up? Is she ignoring it? What's going on? Is it a weird coincidence? Let's take a quick break and talk about how you can help support iFanboy. We have been doing this show for 15 years now.
You started to say 9, and it was completely wrong.
we can only do it because of you. You keep it going. You allow us to pay our bills and buy equipment when we need to, and offset the time it takes to do iFanboy away from our family and our jobs and our lives. And we do appreciate that.
You gave us a figure this week about what it actually costs, and I was like, oh my God. It's really expensive to do this.
I was doing the books, and I was like, oh, hey, this is how much it costs to do the show, which is... You think if we would have done that before 15 years. So the main way to help is patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can go and become a patron. Patrons get a lot of perks, but they also unlock shows like Josh's Talksplode and the Booksplode show and the Mediasplode show. And the next stretch goal, if we hit that, will be the G.I. Joe show, whatever it's called, G.I. Joe Corner, G.I. Joe Splode, who knows. A show that comes out at some frequency that looks at the G.I. Joe Real American Hero cartoon. And then right on the heels of that stretch goal is the return of the barbecue video show, which we'll do quarterly. And you can go check out youtube.com/iFanboy. You can see this past week we put up the original, the very first one we did of those. And so you can see what that would be like if we return to do those. So those at patreon.com/iFanboy. T-shirts, iFanboy.threadless.com. We have our 8 shirts. iFanboy logo, Herm, Pick the Week podcast, ratings if one is Electro, GDAT, Nothing Makes Sense, Nothing Matters, and our Stay Home and Read Comics, our new design. Those can all be bought on T-shirts. They can be bought on iPhone covers. They can be bought on shower curtains. They can be bought on
and rugs,
bath mats.
Yeah,
masks. You know, we all have to wear masks out there. There's masks you can get them on.
I got my shirts this week. I got my Nothing Made Sense, Nothing Matters, and Stay Home and Read Comics shirts.
They're great.
I get the upgraded, the softer shirt.
Tri-weave.
That's the one.
Yeah,
the tri-blend.
Yeah, tri-blend.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Little heather in there.
I have a tri-blend baseball tee with Nothing Makes Sense. Stay Home and Read Comics on it. That's great. Half the proceeds from Stay Home and Read Comics will be and have been donated to the Comic Book United Fund. So we sent our first donation in this week. And so we'll keep doing that as more people buy that design. But if you want to help comic book stores, that fund is a great way to help. And if you buy anything from that design, half your money will go to the Comic Book United Fund. iFanboy.com/support. Direct donations via PayPal. As we mentioned last week, eccentric billionaires are still welcome.
It's weird to haven't... Have you heard anything?
No, not yet.
Huh. I felt like this is our week.
You know, you don't have to be in for all of it. You can just kick in a little bit and then tell your eccentric billionaire buddies, wouldn't it be funny if you also kicked in a little bit?
That would be a gas.
And then eventually we get to where we need to go. Josh is up to his ears in Porsches.
Hey, 2, maybe 3.
You know how, like, everyone loves a challenge online? Like, you know...
Yeah.
TikTok, everyone's doing some kind of silly dance while the Chinese government takes all their information.
Right. We have to gamify my personal enrichment.
So, you know, turn us into the Billionaire Challenge.
Yeah.
Get your billionaire buddy friends. Everyone kicks in $1 million, $2 million. You know, nothing's going to break your bank. A rounding error, quite frankly.
You get a late model 911 turbo of some kind. You know, with the turbo, 2 twin turbos on a 6. That's nice. Then what you want to do is get one of those electric ones. I forget what they're called, but they're the crazy fastest. But then you go vintage. You get a vintage 959. That's the all-wheel drive rally car. Those 3 in the stable. I mean, I've only got 2 garage places, so that's a problem.
Well, I would assume with the money we're looking for, you'd upgrade your abode.
I see. Yeah, that probably... Yeah, you know what? My wife would probably agree with that.
This is the way we have to be going here, eccentric billionaires.
The way that I work is that if I came into an absurd amount of money, I would be in the same place, but it would just be filled
with gadgets,
with junk that's worth way more than the house I'm in. And it would take like my wife to be like, you know, our house is garbage, and I'd be like, yeah, you know what, it is. I didn't notice that before.
You've got 4 Porsches in the driveway.
Yeah. Like Beverly Hillbillies, but billionaires.
iFanboy.com/support. That's where you can go. Eccentric Billionaires always welcome. And iFanboy.com/Amazon. That's where you can find our Booksplode books, and you can find a general link. And we thank everyone who does all the above. Like we said, it really does help us and keeps the show going. We do appreciate that. And now let's enter Mark Russell Corner.
Jeez, oh yeah, look at that. Hey, that podcast you listen to has gotten damn materialistic.
So,
tell you what.
I'd have so many cakes. Mark Russell had 3 books out this week. Let's talk about them. Red Sonja, number 16. This is the Prime book. Mark Russell, Bob Q, Deirdre Kelly, and Hassan Otsman Allahu. That's got to be wrong. Allahu. Tell me what you thought. This is one of your favorite books on the market.
It is. It's hard for me not to compare the two because I'm trying to sort of go back. But Red Sonja is my favorite. I've had a hard time getting into Killing Red Sonja.
Have you been reading Killing Red? This is only issue 2 is out there, but have you been reading it?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And just because I think there was a lag in all of them.
Yep.
And there's 2 stories going on, and they actually do cross over.
They cross over here.
I'm glad that I read Killing first because it would have made no sense if I had read Red Sonja first, and then we went over to that other story. So all those things aside, every time there's an issue of Red Sonja, I get excited, which is a sentence that still makes no sense when I say it out loud. Mm-hmm. But I think that he's deftly moved from the end of that first Empire arc, where the monarch is going through everything and she's the last wall to sort of stop him, and then afterwards, that the problem isn't solved because now she's got to feed her army. So then she goes and she makes a deal with the devil where she's now in charge of this other ruthless despot's army, and he's sending her on. He's sending her on horrible errands to go conquer people who needn't be conquered. And the whole thing still is this treatise on war and rulers and power and violence and all that stuff, and it continues to be fascinating.
It's really great how he can continue to weave interesting parables through these stories. It's not as on the nose as something like Flintstones, mm-hmm. but it's still quite there, but it's told through the wrapping paper of this interesting story about these. It's no longer a war story now; it's about ruling, at least right now.
Yeah.
Sonja's being not a fish out of water because she's very good at doing this and she's done it before, but she's in a different position than she was in the first however many issues that took, 12 issues mm-hmm. or so. She's the subjugated second in command in this new emperor. And
what's interesting is that in most stories like this would all be about how she's plotting to get out of under the yoke of this person in revenge, but that doesn't actually seem to be what's happening. She's accepted the thing that she accepted to do. And I'm sure there's going to be a twist at some point.
She'll take her opportunity when it presents itself, but she's not actively sowing the seeds of rebellion or anything. She's just
because she's doing this for her people,
right?
Which is really interesting. It's good, and Bob Q continues to be another guy that whenever I see him on stuff, I'm really happy about it. He's a great match for this book. It's a great book. The color's great. It has yet to disappoint me.
So I read Killing Red Sonja 1 and 2. This week, Did that
help?
Yeah, it did for the story. One came in a while ago, and I said, "Well, I don't know what this is," and I think it. I don't even remember when it came out, but I didn't read it. I just saved it for the next one. And finally, this one came out. I think 2 things about this book. One, it's Mark Russell and Bryce Ingman, and it's art by Craig Rousseau. Mark Russell's clearly not scripting this.
Correct. I agree.
And so that's a downgrade. There's a lot more supernatural in this book that I don't love. There's a talking boar for no reason and or explanation. Giants are one thing, and there's giants in this book and in Red Sonja. That's the crossover bit. But why is there a talking boar?
Well, I don't know much about this world, but if it's the same one that Conan lives in, then there is an element of that all the time.
There's no talking boars.
Well,
in Conan.
James Earl Jones, a giant snake. What do you want?
It was weird that they're just all like, this is normal.
All right, that's window dressing, though, because the fact is there's no characters who we know or care about who are worth following. That is the problem with this book. Not even if you go to the sort of main series, the kid's father, the leader who was trying to take over, I don't remember his name, he had the weird headdress. He was interesting. Yeah. He was the guy that when he came up, he was worth following because we knew who he was and he was interesting, even if he was a shit.
We knew who he was. We knew what he wanted. Yes. This book is about his son, who is on a quest to kill Red Sonja for revenge on his father. But
it's too far removed because we don't know who he is. He seems very much like a babe in the woods.
Like Babe in the Woods.
And he's out of depth, but I don't know. It's kind of unclear. There's his mother, and I don't know where she's coming from. And then there's the Oracle person who's apparently his real father, and I don't know where he's coming from.
And then there's a fucking talking boar.
Yeah, there's the giants. That stuff didn't bug me, but just because I don't know. There's bits of it that I like, but I don't know why I'm reading it other than Mark Russell's name is on it, and it's related to that other thing that I really liked. Craig Rousseau is also great.
He's great, although there were a couple of times, it might have been in the first issue where the art sort of threw me, but I liked the art a lot. It's got a sort of fairy tale quality to it.
I mean, I've known his name forever.
Yeah.
Now, it's long enough that I don't quite remember why I know his name.
I don't know if I'm going to keep reading this one. I can't decide.
I probably will, because I'm hoping.
Right. It'll depend on the week.
Yep.
Billionaire Island #2. This was another book where the first issue came out like before the pandemic, and now we're 4 months later. So I read 1 and 2 together. This one I liked more than the first one. If you remember the first one came out, we were like, this was better.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was perfect. I enjoyed it though. At the end, I was like, okay, I want to see what happens next.
And I think it's because we were on Billionaire Island this whole time. Whereas the first one, it was a lot of setup. We spent a lot of time off the island. And to me, it's like, okay, well, if Mark Russell's going to do a book called Billionaire Island, clearly he's going to be looking at all of the things around billionaires, income inequality, capitalism, then we should be spending most of the time doing that. And that's what we're doing here in this issue. We have a movie studio here on Billionaire Island that employs Louis C.K. and Steven Seagal and Kevin Spacey. We have the guy who in the first issue killed one of the billionaire's minions, and now he's scammed his way onto the island. We get more of the people that are trapped in the hamster cage. Like, it was a lot more of the stuff that I thought was good in the first issue.
Yeah.
I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. There was bits of it where I was like, does that make sense? Like, because I thought, there's a movie studio. I was like, there's got to be people who work there. So like, there's already the idea. See, originally the idea was to me that they had all gone to this place and there was only those. And I thought, well, there's going to have to be people to serve them and everything. So there's an underclass somewhere.
There has to be. There's infrastructure. These billionaires aren't cooking their own food. So
no.
The idea is you can't go on the island unless you are worth $1 billion. But clearly that's not the case.
Right.
But there's always a facade everywhere, right?
Yep. True. I mean, I think that there's a lot of potential to it, but I still think that we're in a setup mode where I'm still not quite sure what it is.
Yeah. But I did enjoy reading it. I had a good time reading it.
It is sort of the same deal. Like, I'm still not quite sure who to root for. I don't really know if I like
you presume
that guy.
The Punisher character.
Yeah, but I don't know if I care yet about that. Or, the people in the hamster cage, they seem more closer to being that. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Maybe it's the reporter.
Yep. She seems like the Lois Lane seems like the most likely of it now. But
so those are the books we wanted to talk about. In fact, that was every book I read except for DCeased.
Which was
fine, but there was some problems. I didn't want to.
Those are DC characters, right?
That was the problem, right? I didn't know who those characters were.
Right.
And I didn't know.
Well, I can't fault Tom Taylor for knowing all the characters really well and then using some that I don't know.
I was like, who are these people? Anyway, those are all the books, literally all the books I read. Was there any other books?
There we go. We did it.
Were there any other books you read that weren't on the show?
Yes. I don't remember what they were.
That's fine.
Off the top of my head, but
Patreon.com/iFanboy, as we mentioned before, is where you can come be a patron, and every patron can vote to add a book to the rundown. And I wanted to quickly reiterate the rules of the voting because we had a lot of patrons join up during the off time, during the pandemic, in which we weren't doing a patron pick, and so maybe they didn't realize the rules, the new people. Although the rules are printed on the page in which you vote, sometimes people don't read. I get that. Number one, the book's got to be available digitally. So like this week, people voted for Negan Lives. It was a comic store exclusive. It wasn't on Comixology. Number two, no trade paperbacks. Almost every week since we've been back, people vote for trade paperbacks. The voting ends Thursday night. We record the show Friday morning. We don't have time to read a trade paperback in between. So they're not eligible for a patron pick. So it's only single issues, have to be available digitally. Those are the rules. There's other rules. Read the rules. This week's pick, All America Comics. Joe Casey, Dustin Gwynn, Brad Simpson, Sonia Harris, Russ Wooten, Sonia Harris, former writer on the iFanboy. Very confusing. This book is called All America Comics One Shot, as it's listed on the shipping list, although it is very much a first issue and it ends with the to be continued. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand that.
It's not that I found it confusing. It's that this was an issue of a Marvel Comics America Chavez story.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand
why.
Yeah, why or what it was what it was other than that. Like, it didn't seem like it wasn't a parody of that. It wasn't a satire. It didn't seem to be a deconstruction of that. It was a different, like, it was like if he had pitched this to Marvel and they had given him the book and he just did it, but he just did it anyway.
It's very weird. I stopped many times while reading this, and it wasn't that long. It was only 30 pages. And there's a lot of problems with the book itself, I think. Not the art. The art is terrific. I don't know why this is, and I know I mentioned that earlier with Star, but like Casey's previous book, which we loved, Sex, was a deconstruction of Batman and his mythos and characters, and Batman and his mythos and characters really lend itself to a deconstruction. You know, telling stories that they can't tell in DC, examining the archetypes. I don't know why America Chavez needs a deconstruction.
I don't know enough about her that it would mean anything.
Exactly. I just don't know what drove him to say, I want to tell this America Chavez story outside of America Chavez. I just don't know. I don't understand the point of it.
Also, it is really interesting to me that he's done this before. Joe Casey in his writing has done this thing before where he has had the characters communicate via social media. I don't remember
he
what
really
the other
loves
book
that.
was. Well, but he's not on any social media.
Right, and that's obvious.
Yeah, and I don't know what the point of that is. This made me realize something that is...
Well, we're big Joe Casey fans, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I say this, I assume there's something there, but I don't know what it is. And I think it's a problem that it wasn't really either it wasn't communicated or it's just something that I'm not interested in. That's also possible. But what I was going to get at is that this is a guy who loves to write mainstream superhero books. And for whatever reason, by the way things went, he's very successful outside of comics.
Yep.
If you can look up what Man of Action has done or what it is. So he doesn't really need to do Marvel. He
doesn't need the money.
No, but I think that he wants to.
Clearly, he just spent years writing a Batman book.
Yeah, but that was like a subversive Batman.
Yeah, but it was
book.
still a Batman book, and he's
totally.
And he's still, and before he stopped doing Marvel, he was doing like these sort of like, old timey classic Avengers stories. So and there's Avengers analogs in here that are clearly in his interest area.
Oh no, yeah, he loves that stuff.
It's just
70s, 80s Marvel comics.
It was just weird. I kept stopping every few pages, going, "Why is this happening?"
I don't get it. I really didn't get it, and it's none of this is to be like, "Oh, this was bad." It wasn't like this is terrible. I can't read it. And what was the one that he did with Mike Huddleston with the truck driver and everything?
I don't remember.
I didn't like that. Like, I didn't get it. It wasn't my... It's an aesthetic thing. Joe's got a really strong, like, these are the things that I like, and I'm going to work on things that are like these things. And I don't like all of them, and that's fine. But this one really threw me. I think it's interesting. I think you and I came out of it with exactly
and
the
also,
same thing.
it's just, it's unfortunate, but, like, middle-aged men writing... teenagers talking through social media doesn't sound authentic.
Well, yes. I don't even know what sounds authentic. There was a bunch of language in there that I've seen before, but don't really,
There were words in there that are correct, or at least were correct at one point. I just don't know if they're being used correctly. It didn't feel like it.
Well, I mean, all that aside, though, I couldn't figure the point. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't satire. It was just like, this is how they talk about it. I don't know the reason to do that.
I just don't know if this. So I'm trying to get to the last page so I can see how it goes. But this is called One Shot, and it ends with next, the filth and the like. It ends on a next, on a cliffhanger, and I don't know. Is there more?
Yeah, that's. He's really into the comic form,
and I get that. But also, if you're just telling a one issue story, it shouldn't be constructed this way. It wasn't constructed as a total story.
Yeah, I know, but I can see him doing his one issue of a thing and having it act like I've actually literally had this conversation with him. Like, he always thought it'd be cool to just do one issue in the middle of a thing that doesn't exist and build it like a complete comic book, but it never happens. It's just like you get this window on this other kind of world and then you're out.
Which is necessarily okay.
That might be what that is.
It's one of the benefits of Image existing is that he can do that. He can go to them and say, I want to do this weird one shot that feels like it's part of a longer book, but it's not. And that's fine. It was distracting That part was distracting to me.
Yeah, like I said, it didn't seem to be a deconstruction. It didn't seem to be something other. It was just an America Chavez story that existed somewhere else, and I don't know. I don't know what it was that it said about that character or about people or comics. I just couldn't grab onto it.
Yeah. So what's the ratings on All America Comics? Out of 5.
2.5.
I think 2. I think that's the range. It's unfortunate. I thought, Dustin Gwyn's, I like him a lot. He's a great artist.
He's one of those guys who he's really good, and I think, but he also kind of doesn't do it for me.
Right. I get that.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. He's a great artist, anybody having him on a comic is lucky to have him there, but it's just not my favorite.
So sticking with it?
I mean, no. I don't think that. I don't know. I don't even know if that's possible. But if it was,
all right. So there you go. Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can go vote at a book to the rundown. But at the $5 or higher level, you get your own superpower live on the show, like these two.
Yeah, Darin Goke can remove any stain. Any stain. So we're talking clothing.
Right.
We're talking in your vehicle. We're talking your driveway, the oil stains.
Does he have to wave his hand over it, or what's it? How does it?
Yeah, we'll do it sort of like a magnetic thing. Like, you ever look at like an old building and it has stains, or everything is stained, Connor?
Yes, everything's dirty. Like an R.M. Guerra book.
Darin's gonna get rid of those stains. He's the stain remover. And the thing is,
Stain Master.
There's a way. Stain Master. That's a real brand, right?
It's a product, yeah.
Yeah.
Lawsuit. Sorry,
there's
Darin.
There's a way to get rid of most stains, but they're usually complicated and arcane, and you got to go buy borax, whatever borax is.
What is borax?
I think it was soap. But, you ever get a grease stain on a
30
shirt?
soap where they just would dump it on you and just scrub you with a bristles.
It was just lead and lye.
Dry. Yeah, it was lead and lye and DDT. And just dumped in a bag on your head, and some craggly old woman with a really harsh brush would scrub you.
All that's gone now. He's taking out stains.
All right. Matt Pfaff.
Love that name.
Matt Pfaff can grow any vegetable out of his mouth.
Ew.
So, you need a zucchini, he opens up his mouth, and out comes a zucchini. Now, the problem is when you get to things like pumpkins. Mm-hmm. But,
Can he get himself in a situation where he's, is it a voluntary reflex?
Yeah. No, he manifests carrots?
Okay.
Here's some carrots.
Can he make the mistake of, I'm going to grow a pumpkin, and then he realized that he didn't account for the space and it's a problem?
And then you just get the mini pumpkins.
Yeah.
That's what's going to have to happen.
That's fine. I don't want any of his mouth legumes.
Yeah, look, sorry, Matt. I mean, you could have gotten cake coming out of your mouth, but you got vegetables.
You know what? I don't want stuff that's coming out of somebody's mouth, especially now.
Well, the thing about vegetables is you mostly remove the skin, so the part that's been in his mouth is removed.
Let me ask you another question.
You want to put cake in the mouth, not out the mouth.
How do you feel about zucchini?
I can take it or leave it.
I can eat it, but I don't want to.
No. There's hardly any situation, I can't think of any situation in which I say to myself, I really want a zucchini right now.
But people like zucchini, right?
I guess so.
I've never met one.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can go at the $5 higher level. You give it superpower. I think we can squeeze in one or two, maybe two emails. Let's do Dan from Baltimore, Maryland. He says, with this being a week where DC and Marvel are not shipping any comics to stores, it had me wondering about newer comic publishers. Obviously, time is a major factor, but what does it typically take for you to take a chance on a new publisher? For example, recently Upshot Comics launched with established talents like Axel Alonso and J. Michael Straczynski attached. Does that impact you at all, or are you there only for a few creators like a Mark Russell that you would follow no matter who's publishing? Does a publisher like Vault come into your radar at all, considering there's more up-and-coming talent built up through word of mouth?
It's a good question. It's a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a couple of things happening here. I think that Conor and I we probably have different takes on this, is my guess, but
maybe.
I think we're both creatures of habit to a certain extent, and it's difficult to make a habit out of new stuff that comes along. So it takes a little while to integrate that stuff. But the other side of it is that by and large, whenever a new publisher comes along, they're basically taking people who we've already seen do things at other places, and the comics aren't as good. Mm-hmm. And after a while, it gets frustrating to keep trying that stuff and keep coming up with the same lukewarm reviews, because the thing is, we're not going to talk about a thing on this show that we really hated, or even worse, we're even less likely to talk about something that just made no impact at all. And with many of these, I don't know, tertiary publishers, these sort of new
upstarts
concerns coming in, that has been the case. And honestly, very specific. Upshot is the one, right? So Upshot sent me some like magazine. I got it in the mail, and it says this is from Axel Alonso and what's his name, Bill Jemas.
Right.
And all of the names were just people from the early 2000s at Marvel who I didn't like.
Right.
And so that's not exciting to me. That feels like a retread of stuff I didn't like the first time. So, I read through the thing. I looked at the different stuff. I'm glad they're doing it. But every time, this is super cynical, I know, but like every time there's a bunch of publishers and like, we're breaking the model. And they're not. They're doing the same goddamn thing. They're making comics. And none of that matters. The model is broken. The model is what it is or whatever. Make really great books. We are talking about, I know that like you mentioned Mark Russell, but we're talking about Red Sonja on a regular basis. Dynamite made that choice to do something that was really good and get somebody in. If for some reason, listen.
Oh, Josh is drunk.
If there is an amazing regular series that is coming out from one of these publishers, whether it's Valiant or Ahoy, or Upstart, or Vault, or any of those,
TKO,
we're going to know about it. But we don't know about it because largely there isn't. It's the same thing with Boom, and it's the same thing with IDW. There's not amazing product coming out. So there's stuff like, oh, that's kind of interesting, that's enjoyable. That's as good as it's gotten for me. Across the board. I can't think of a series that I've gone and tried. I mean, we talked about Sarah.
Yep. My two things on this are, number one, it's still a truism that for the most part, the best people making comics will end up at Marvel and DC.
And then based on that, they will go over to Image and do what they want.
Right. So, for instance, Four Kids Walk in a Bank with Matthew Rosenberg's big indie book from, was it Black Mask?
Yes, Black Mask.
What happened? He started writing for Marvel. If people come out and make a big splash like that with a big indie, and they want to make money making comics.
And when he says money, he doesn't mean they want to be rich.
No,
if they want to make a living,
they want to make a paycheck that
comics,
pays rent, and they're not Terry Moore or somebody from the '80s who was an indie god. They'll end up at Marvel and DC or something like that. That's what happens. So for the most part, that's where the best people end up making comics. Now, there are people who I would follow to other publishers. So Mark Russell is one. We're reading Billionaire Island. If Upshot announced, hey, we're doing a crime book with Ed Brubaker, I'd read it, but they don't do that because he doesn't need to. He's doing it at Image. J. Michael Straczynski's not a name that's going to get me to go try out a book.
No, he's the one comic. He's the one person in comics I'm like, I don't like that guy.
But like Garth Ennis is, and we, Josh and I were joking earlier today because we found yet another publisher. He's putting a war book out. He'll put a war book out through, if you're a publisher, he'll do it if you'll pay for it. And we'll follow them around because we love Garth Ennis war comics. But there's only a handful of creators where it's like, oh, that guy's doing a book or that girl's doing a book at that publisher. That's interesting. I'll check that out. But there's only a couple of them because they're either working at Marvel, DC, or Image.
But even that, Ed Brubaker's doing a crime book. Garth Ennis is doing a war book. That to me isn't interesting in the way of what you're talking about. I think we're talking about new creators.
Well, there's
new
two
stories.
things here. He says, do established names like Axel Alonso and Straczynski bring you over, or are you interested in a place like Vault that's all upcoming people? Because we've talked before about wanting to see new upcoming voices.
Yeah.
Throughout the life of the show. Brubaker's doing a Panel Syndicate book. That's not necessarily a low-profile publisher, but if Brubaker was doing that book through Vault, I would check it out, but he's not.
But also, like, if one of these people starts doing a book, an ongoing, that we actually try a lot more than you think. We have access to most of the newer publishers, and honestly, the ones who don't have access to, that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, we're established media show, and we get almost all the new publishers send us their books to talk about on the show every week. We get emails from everybody.
We check them out. We look at all. We don't necessarily read. We look at everything that comes out every week. Something that looks interesting, and I know Conor and I both do the same thing. And there's absolutely a homogenous quality to the kinds of things we like to a certain extent. Where if the story is it's pirates and Frankenstein, we're both going to go no.
No, wait a minute. And I don't want to come off like we're jerks. It's just that.
No,
we have a somewhat firm grasp, but that doesn't mean we know everything that's coming out. No one can know everything that's coming out. There's too many books that come out. So what, like Josh was talking about, word of mouth will say this book is really good. That happened with 4 Kids Walking a Bank. Word of mouth reaches us. This book's really good. We read it. We like it. We talk about it in the show. 3 months later, the book stops coming out. Rosenberg's working at Marvel. That's just sort of the arc of these things right now.
It really is one of those things where talent does kind of.
The cream rises.
Yeah, it really does in comics.
It's very rare that someone's very good at making comics and doesn't get noticed. Because it's such a small community.
The other side of things is when somebody isn't good yet, even if they have like a spark or whatever, that's not interesting to me. Like does that make sense what I'm saying to you? Like somebody will come along and they may not be good for a little while, or they won't do things we're not going to end up talking about that because we'll read it and go, eh. And then when they do the thing and it breaks through and it's good, then that's a thing we can talk about. We talk about Tom Taylor a lot like that. And now, you can totally say, well, yeah, but this stuff that he was doing before that you guys didn't talk about was good. Fine, we go back and look at that too. But there are so many mediocre comics out there.
Well, that was the thing. We worked at Graphically. We would get submissions all the time, and it's just you're wading through a knee-high pile of people who aren't ready for primetime. Either we'll never get there or not good there yet. And one book came out of Graphically, ended up in Image, and that's just there's a very low success rate, like in anything. Like the percentage of people who are actors who become working actors, the people who are musicians who become working musicians, people who make comics who become working comic creators. It's a very low percentage, and so. It's tough.
Yes, and also I want you to it really like becoming a working like full-time real comic creator who's also really good. That's NFL territory. There's a lot of people doing stuff, and it's really difficult to weed through all the other stuff. Like there's so much stuff out there that you will never hear about, but kind of for a reason, and we can't get to all that stuff. But like honestly. I'm waving my hand like you're in front of me. I'm talking at your letter. I would love to hear from people if you think that there's stuff that we've really genuinely missed who are not, some of the stuff that we've been talking about. Because we want that.
Yep.
We would love to go, fuck, I read this book from a vault. It's amazing. Yep. You have to check this out. Conor and I would be on that like flies on shit.
And the thing is, like we said before, like we get it all. So like TKO sent us all their original releases when they as they did to all the media outlets, because that's what you do in publicity. You send out your stuff for review to the people who are doing the reviewing, and the only one that was worth talking about was Sarah, because it was 2 established veterans of the industry, Ennis and Epting, who have been in the industry for 3 or 4 decades and are very talented and have been on giant books. Mm-hmm. The other people, there were names attached to those books. They just weren't interesting. There's also a combination of people making books, and also you have to think about the premise. There's also just premises and genres and stories that we're just not interested in.
Yeah.
So if you've got a line of new horror comics, no matter how good they are, Josh and I are just not going to want to read them.
But we might.
We might.
We read the Joe Hill stuff.
It also doesn't mean that people that can't enjoy them even if we don't.
Yeah,
I'm not saying there's something good coming out from Vault. I don't know, but people might be really enjoying them, and that's fine.
I mean, but we are totally always open to the idea. We're seeing what people say in the comments or do whatever, and it tends to be that again, cream rises to the top. Like check these things out, but I don't think we're the only people. Who would. It's a two-way street, sort of like if we're faltering in some area, usually the listenership will sort of speak up one way or another, and I would love if I'm
it'd be great something. If in the comment section here or wherever you attack us on the internet, tell us books from some of these newer, smaller publishers that you really like, that you think are really good.
But I'm not interested in stuff that's just okay.
Right.
It's kind of fun. Or
I don't hear it's pretty good. I want to hear, no, this is incredible.
That will get my attention. Pretty good. I'm up to my elbows in pretty good comics, and it's boring already.
I want to end this on
this is the snottiest I have ever sounded.
A more lighthearted email. Andrew A. Not that the other one wasn't lighthearted, but Andrew A. has a story. He says, with some extra time on my hands thanks to the current pandemic, I recently broke out my old sketchbooks and I've been drawing again. This got me thinking about comics and feeling nostalgic for some of my iFanboy Pick the Week podcasts. So I've been re-listening from episode 300 and I've caught up to about episode 315, only a few hundred to go. So here's the fun part. The other night, as I was cooking dinner, I was listening to your reviews of the first month of the New 52. Whenever you would say it's time for ratings, I would echo ratings out loud back at you. After a while, my wife came in the kitchen and just said, ratings. She had been listening on the other side of the house and I didn't realize it. That's weird and awesome. And
well, Mrs. A, ratings.
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 That's kind of great.
Yeah.
She just walked in without saying a word, just said ratings.
Yeah, that is great.
So
does she know that we ripped that off?
Shh. Contact@ifanboy.com is where you can write us in. Dan's email came in under the wire. It wasn't even on the script until it came in right before showtime. So good for Dan.
Good question.
Great question.
By the way, I don't know. I hope that wasn't a defensive thing. We think about this.
Yeah. No.
We're very concerned about the fact that we're not covering everything, but when we reach out, man, it's slim pickings. Come tell us a great series that we don't know about, man. If you listen, you know what we like. You know what we would think is good. Plugs.
Booksplode. Our Jack Kirby's New Gods show is out. That was a lot of fun. So you can find that back on the feed. And not this month, July, but next month, August, we'll be talking about Pluto Volume 1. And I was leafing through it the other day and just anticipating my manga headache from my brain trying to process reading backwards. But I'm excited. I've been thinking about reading this book for years, and I just haven't had a chance, and I'm excited to finally get a chance to do so. And also, after that show, behind this show, a couple shows back, you'll find our Media Explode, third episode. We talk about quarantine and streaming, and we also talk about That Thing You Do and the top 5 Tom Hanks films. We all break down our favorite Tom Hanks films. And just yesterday, Apollo 13 was on TV, and I was watching it because it was in my top 5.
Apparently, it was funny. Conor wrote Talksplode, ? As in this month. And I want to say it was earlier today that I went, oh, crap, I got to do another one of those. Because there was a little...
lag.
Well, there was a lag, but also there was just... The beginning of the year was kind of a clusterfuck with all of that.
And you had the Kelly Thompson debacle.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Got it done. So for you, I've done an extra. For me, I've done an extra show. For you, I haven't. Yeah, I'll get on that.
You should.
I hate taking suggestions, by the way. So I'm I asked for suggestions about series. Fine. I don't want suggestions for people I have to talk to. I hate that.
You should talk to Alan Moore, the only interview show that fell apart that we were happy to not follow up on.
It didn't even fall apart. It didn't. It was just like, could we maybe?
No, it got to the stage of the publisher setting it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't just abstract.
Yeah, no, I went for it, but I'm not unhappy that it didn't happen.
Head over to ifanboy.com. That's where you can find all the podcasts we just talked about. All of our shows are there. We've been updating slowly but surely the podcast page, in which all the old archived shows are there and embedded, and you can find them there with cleaned up show notes and everything. It's fun. Just listen to a show in which only Ron had read the books that week. I think it was episode 5, where you and I had not read books that week. You were in the midst of changing stores. Your new store was too far, or your old store was too far away from your house, so you weren't getting.
I remember
you weren't getting your books on time. So for like 10 shows, you weren't really reading books, and then I was on vacation and didn't go to the store. It was a whole thing. We talked about.
That was a different time.
Yeah. Also, you can find what the pick of the week is by liking facebook.com/iFanboy or following us at iFanboy on Twitter or at iFanboy Comics on Instagram. That's where we announce the pick. Usually on Instagram, we also have the Best of the Week in Panels feature. I didn't have any this week. Nothing jumped out at me.
That can happen.
I tried. There was a lot of good-looking books, but there was just no single panels where I was like, oh, that's a great panel.
I got to say, I respect the fact that you're not going to force it.
I didn't force it.
There was nothing, you did not feel it, and therefore you did not do it, and I think that is the way to go. It keeps us honest.
Individually, we are CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, J. Flanagan on Instagram, and formerly of Twitter.
We've got a good streak going.
And you can, as we mentioned earlier in the show, subscribe to our YouTube page. So like and subscribe. Isn't that what the kids say?
I want you to click on the little button down there and subscribe if you like this one. Thank you so much. I'm over at patreon.com/dipshitwithhair.
YouTube.com/iFanboy. That's the page. And that's where we're putting up our old video shows. And this past week, we had a mini about the best covers from the previous week at the time, 13 years ago. And we had a visit to the Strangers in Paradise rap party, interviewed Terry Moore, and I think we also interviewed his wife.
I just pulled out the signed poster from that when I was framing all that stuff. I found that.
And, as I said earlier, our very first barbecue and email show was released this week. So check that out.
I miss Robin. I used to have conversations with Robin in the elevator in San Diego.
She's a very nice lady.
Somewhat regularly.
She's a classy lady.
Yep, it's true. If you like this show, leave a star rating or write a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you do things like that. And it's like we always say, if you're on social media or telling people or whatever, word of mouth is the best thing you do. So thanks to everybody who does that. And if I may, 5 years ago, not quite 5 years ago, but almost, myself, you, and Ron did Goodfellas Minute.
Yep.
And I started listening to them again.
Okay.
And it's really fun. I'm like, this is a great show. People should listen to this. So if you've come on,
that's true.
Between now and then, and you haven't, once we sort of get up to speed after the first week, man, that was a great show. I'm listening to it and I'm having fun, just like I'm listening to any other show.
Well, because it's been so long, I don't remember what we talked about.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great.
I'm proud of that show. And
yeah, like you should be.
Like you said, if anyone has come on in the last 5 years and likes the movie Goodfellas and never heard our podcast Goodfellas Minute, it's at goodfellasminute.com, but you can't stream the shows from there. You can find it on iTunes or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can still the feed's still live. You can still download the show and enjoy as Josh is.
Yeah, and it's pretty timeless. So that's just it's not even a plug like come listen to our stuff. I just was like, oh man, we did good work on this, and it made me go for a second. Maybe we should do another one. And I went, no,
we're
do that.
G.I. Joe if we
Yeah, that's true.
We're gonna do it very differently a very different production schedule than we did on that one.
Yeah.
That nearly killed me that year. Anyway, thanks for listening to any of our podcasts. We do appreciate it. You have many podcast choices out there, but thank you for choosing ours. And
many does not cover that expansive universe.
And until next week, hi, I'm Conor.
I'm Josh. Stay safe out there, everybody, please.
This is not a moment, it's the movement.